Alright, y'all. I'm back. Fucking all alone. This time I'm talking about the new Dustbowl Revival album. A lot of you guys, I don't know, have you heard of the Dustbowl Revival? I found this band back in 2015 when that song, what the fuck was the name of that song? Never Had to Go. Never Had to Go. And it was like posted on Facebook and people were like, oh man, Dick Van Dyke is dancing around in the music videos. I looked at it, I was like, damn, this is some cool shit. So I jumped on all their albums. They were very, just a fun fucking sort of Dixieland jazz, fucking swing music. It reminded me of when you had your small swing revival in the 90s with bands like fucking, who the fuck, Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, you know, Royal Crown Review, and even some of the Cherry Poppin' Daddy stuff. Squirrel Nut Zippers was always the most interesting because they had a very speakeasy kind of vibe to a lot of their shit. Spooky folk and calypso kind of shit. There was a lot more going on with Squirrel Nut Zippers style. Got some Zydeco shit in there. A whole lot of cool shit. They were probably the most interesting band out of all those guys. Cause like Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, loved the hell out of them, but they really just sort of tried to be White Cab Calloway kind of stuff, which fucking love that shit. But that's, you know, there was a very sort of, you know, genericness to the Big Bad Voodoo Daddy style, as opposed to what Squirrel Nut Zippers were doing. And that's what Dustbowl Revival reminds me of, only with bluegrass, fucking country music, folk music, Dixieland jazz, Zydeco, funk. They do a lot of fucking shit, and it's awesome. And after their semi-live album with Lampshade on, they did their self-titled album maybe 3 years ago, and they dropped a lot of that country, bluegrass stuff. Really, their self-titled album is pretty much just a rock album, but with horns and violins and mandolins and stuff. And it made for, you know, normally I'd be like, oh man, go back to the other stuff that I used to love, man. But the music they made on their self-titled album was interesting because it was, you know, sort of just rock music, but with horns and violins and mandolins and stuff, you know. So it gave it this different kind of sound. And damn, that album is just fantastic, you know, all the way through. And I had no fucking clue that they were dropping a new album this year. In fact, this came out back in January, I believe. And so I ordered it, I got it, and you know, it took me a second to really get into it. But that's also because I was buying a lot of punk albums at this point. So, you know, when you're like all of us, you know, we kind of get stuck on a genre for a while, and then when something else comes along from somebody we like easily too, it takes us a minute to get, or it takes me a minute to get into it because I'm still in that punk mode. You know, I was buying a lot of Misfits, and I was finishing up the Dead Kennedys discography, and so when I finally got a chance to fully check it out, fuck, this album is great, and it does, you know, it does similar things. Well, I mean, it's nothing like the self-titled album. There is a sound to this album that is, when you listen to all of their stuff, especially their self-titled album, there's a very polished sound to it. This album has sort of a lo-fi kind of, like a good shittiness to it. You know what I mean? Like, it's got this grit to the way that it sounds. And a lot of times I call it that hipster sound when bands like, easily say the Magnetic Zeros. Like, this sounds like the kind of album the Magnetic Zeros wish they could make. And this does the same thing where, you know, a lot of that Dixieland stuff, a lot of that bluegrass and jazz and all that, it's not here, but what they do here is fucking great too. They throw in some good ass, especially one cool little sort of, I call it the Zatarans, you know, it's that fucking sort of, almost kind of like some Zydeco, fucking just a New Orleans soundtrack, you know, a little New Orleans song, and it just sounds like a Zatarans commercial, you know. So the motherfucking what am I? One difference between this album and a major thing I loved about their self-titled album was, I guess her name is BB, the female here. She pretty much was the lead on the self-titled album. The main guy, Zach LeChupin, I don't know how to pronounce his name. But Zach on here, you know, the earlier albums, it was mostly just him singing with a female. You know, BB, it actually tripped me out that BB hasn't even been in there all that long. But as the albums go along, the female vocals become more prominent. And when you get to the self-titled album, Zach is hardly on there vocal-wise. Maybe 2, maybe 3 tracks I can think of, but the rest of it's BB. And I love the shit out of her voice. And on here, they sort of balance it out. They have duet-y kind of tracks. They share, you know, equal time. You know, she has a couple tracks, he's got a couple tracks. And he's got a cool voice too. He's got a very unique voice in this kind of music. And fuck, this album is great, man. It opens up with Dreaming, and one thing I like is the fact that this band, even though they're not doing the bluegrass and Dixieland shit anymore, they are still using those instruments. They still find a way to keep the violins in there, the mandolins, and all the horns. They find a way to use those differently as opposed to what they used to do, which is real interesting. And they do it really well on here. They do it really fun on the self-titled album. There's almost a ska, like a 90s ska vibe to the way the horns sound on the self-titled album, especially on the track Good Egg. Definitely check it. Good Egg's a great fucking song. But on here they do things way differently, but they still utilize all of those instruments pretty flawlessly. They just know how to use these instruments and make them sound good in different styles of music as opposed to what they were originally doing. And so Dreamin' starts, you know, then you get to Enemy, which is a really cool BB song, and Sonic Boom, and I Wake Up, and I like those songs. But to me, I really start getting into the album once track 5 comes around and you get to Penelope. That song is fucking awesome. And then from there on out, the rest of the album is phenomenal. I don't know what it is about the first couple tracks. It's almost like a slog, you know. I don't know, because like, I don't know what it is, but I like the first handful of tracks, but for some reason, once Penelope hits, and then the rest of the album, fucking all in this shit. And then Get Rid of You, it's fucking amazing. Really good fucking track. Mirror is another one that's really fucking good. But God, Jesus, man, Ghost is awesome, and I'm struggling right now. I can't remember if it's Ghost or Nobody Knows. Okay, yeah. Ghost is a very dubby kind of track, a little reggae-ish. And then Nobody Knows is the one I call it, the Zataran song. It's very New Orleans, very jazzy. I love the shit out of that track. Runaway is really good, Just One Song is good, and then the really short Runaway Chorale is really good, and then the final track, Let It Go, is damn good as well. I enjoy the shit out of the new Dustbowl Revival album, and I wouldn't mind it if they went back and did some more killer Dixieland and bluegrass kind of shit. One thing I like about their live album with a lampshade on is the fact that none of those songs, even the live ones, are songs from previous albums. So even though a lot of it's live, because I think, there's a couple, they sound more like studio tracks. It feels like Lampshade On and Never Had to Go, where we're straight up studio tracks. But the rest of it's live. But the rest of it is like Dixieland shit, funk shit, bluegrass stuff, fucking swing stuff. Definitely check it out. But this band does a lot of fucking cool shit. And they're adding a lot of cool shit to their sound now. And, but I would like it if they went back and did some more of that stuff, because that's what got me into this band, that's what got me into them, was that style. So I had to adapt to the newer stuff that they're doing. But yeah, highly recommend this album. I'm gonna give this one an 8, only because for some reason, like, I am not all too into it until Penelope comes in. Like, those songs are good. I fucking love Enemy. I really dig I Wake Up. I like them all. But for some reason, I'm not all in until Penelope happens. I don't know what it is. Maybe my ears are getting used to the weird production on this album. Because, yeah, the self-titled album sounds incredibly polished. And this one, it's got this... I like the way the production on this album sounds, but I guess my ears kind of got to get used to what's going on. But by the time Penelope happens, my ears, I guess, are used to it. But, that's really all I really got to say about the new Dustbowl. What did I say? I gave it an 8. But have any of you guys listened to the Dustbowl Revival? They're really worth checking out, especially if you like that kind of Squirrel Nut Zippers kind of shit, let's say Squirrel Nut Zippers takes a more seedy, speakeasy approach. These guys, especially in their earlier stuff, they take a more sunny, southern approach. Who knows? But yeah, I totally dig it. Worth checking out. And we'll see you guys on one more video.